Hey, small business heroes, welcome back to Small Business PR, where we make PR and marketing super accessible for the everyday small business hero. Today, we are doing something very personal, honest, and authentic. This is not going to be about PR. This is going to be about, if you followed me for any point in the last 6, 12, or 24 months, you have seen my radical change in messaging and content and how I position myself. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper because I think our business is really a mirror of our personal work. And as our businesses evolve, so do we. Any of the triggers that we have play out in business, any of our scarcity mindsets, we see it. Any of the healing work that we do, our businesses also benefit. So today is going to be about this really big fundamental shift I have made in my business, how I message, how I show up with the content, and just the energy of how I am now. It's going to be about the 3 big shifts that I have made. Now, I want to preface this by saying that we have gone through so much collectively, from a pandemic through a really turbulent political time where we are more divided than ever. People's rights are being taken away. Entire histories are being erased. Wars still raging. And I think throughout collectively, just even outside of marketing, I don't care if you have a business or not, you probably are tired and overwhelmed and burnt out from being spoken to and sold to. And even with AI content saturation, I feel like the fact that we are now in this age of overwhelm, being burnt out, desensitization, constantly being triggered, what we have developed as a consumer are these extra sensitive digital online spidey senses. What's my branding coach and friend, Sarah Ashman, says. We have developed a hyper awareness for people's energies, if they vibe with us or not. And I know this is kind of a Gen Alpha term. It's like, what's your vibe? Do we vibe? But outside of just the woo-woo stuff, customers are making decisions of buying just from the first 3 seconds of a video. They can tell from your energy if it's a fit. And all this to say is that we have arrived at a point in time where authority alone is not enough, period. I think that now people know, okay, this works. This person has expertise, this thing can help me, this product can help me, but that's not enough for them to buy because not only are they inundated with other information, we have the attention span shorter of a goldfish now, and they know they can get the same thing somewhere else. So authority alone is not enough. The question we need to all collectively answer through our messaging, our marketing, and how we show up is, I know this will work, but will this work for me? And there's a couple of theories around this. I know that Simon Sinek talks about start with why. And I think it's not enough even just to start with your why. I think we're at a point where with the digital spidey senses, people want to see psychological safety. They want to see identity resonance. They want to see what your values are. And I don't care if you make a fidget spinner or if you're a consultant or a coach. We know for a fact that people are buying now because they want to shop with their values. And it's actually a good thing because that means that a lot of people are actually looking under the hood of the car to see who is the maker behind this, who is a person that is behind this product. I want to know. And if their story resonates with me, I will shout them out from the rooftops. I will recommend them to all of our friends. You probably feel the same way when you buy from a small maker and they have a really good email sequence and they tell you about the how, what, when, where, why. You are deeply invested in something that maybe could have been an impulse decision. So we know for a fact that that's where we are. And what I have noticed too is about 12 months ago, as you know, the online business world has shifted. They don't want to buy another course. They don't want to be in nonstop Zooms. We're all very busy and we want that personalization. We are craving that connection. And I think a lot of times we're still using a lot of the 2020 templates that don't create connection, but are just content for content's sake. And I'll never forget, spiritually, I was in Oaxaca for Dia de los Muertos, a beautiful celebration of the dead. I love Mexico, as you know. I want to host a retreat there. But I got connected to I want to say kind of like a medium, and she also does birth chart readings. And for some reason, I connected with her out of everyone. And I just felt like it was meant to be for me to work with her. And she recorded this 3-hour reading with birth chart, tarot cards, and she kind of went through all the aspects of my life from love to health to work. And I'll never forget this. She said that with my business, the main theme that's just so loud and roaring in her head is to remember who the fuck I am. And she kept repeating it. She's like, Gloria, you need to remember who the fuck you are. Your business needs you to remember who the fuck you are. And I think 2 years ago, I didn't really understand what that meant. I always think of myself as a bold person. I'm very extroverted, right? But now with everything we've been through and the radical messaging shifts that I have, to be super unapologetic about my values, maybe even a little bit polarizing, I now know that I am here. I am in alignment. And that wisdom, that download that she gave me, I am living it. And it seems really funny because when you do open up yourself and you're kind of in your lane, if you will, the universe is always speaking to us. And a few days ago, I had my first rejection from a podcast, not in the typical way where it's like, oh, we're full, or, oh, you're not right now. But this was a different type of rejection. So I was referred to this person from a podcast host who absolutely loved my podcast interview. And she said that I gave so much value that she wanted to introduce me to someone else. And this person responded and said, hey, I took a look at your social media and we are not a values fit. And I don't think that we're aligned. So I will not be pursuing any further contact. And I was brushing my teeth. I remember vividly, and I have foam in my mouth standing over the sink. And usually the old Gloria would be like resentful, like what, like embarrassment. But I felt pride and I actually smiled. And so I spit out my toothpaste and I kind of just looked at the email and I took a pause and I remembered, wow, when you speak so clearly from a place of your truth and your intention, of course, you're going to have people who immediately recognize that as a fit or not a fit. And it's the law of polarity. When you are so magnetic in your field, you're going to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. And that's just the law of physics. And when I think about messaging and the work that I am here to do and the work that we're all here to do is just to become more of ourselves, I am inviting you to do that through my recent content. And it means that people will unsubscribe. I'll never forget, I had 150 people unfollow me around the time of Trump's inauguration, where I spoke up about how it's ironic that it's on Black History Month and what's happening. And the fact that I grew up with a Black family. In high school, I was raised by my best friend's family, and seeing how a Black single female household raising 4 kids in a predominantly white neighborhood, it really taught me so much about interracial dynamics in America. Now, obviously, I am a daughter of a widowed immigrant. I have my own perception of things, but being at the intersection of so many worlds with the way that I grew up just made me open my eyes to so many things. And so that's why when people say, wow, Gloria, you have such a diverse audience, I really want to attract diversity in my program, but people just don't come. I have to be honest. I have to say, you don't attract diversity, you become diversity. And it's the subliminal, subconscious things that you do, not just the conscious things, but like the content you consume, the places that you inhabit, how proximate do you get to other people, and how curious are you about other people's cultures and traditions? What kind of questions do you ask? What kind of people you have on your Instagram feed, and the people that you are close with. So all of that together, you're sending a message to people about diversity. And I'm very outspoken about my values now. These are kind of the 3 major changes. So the first one is going from template to truth. So I was a new online business owner. I had no idea. I didn't start off with an audience. I had no audience. And so to build from scratch, you follow all of these gurus and experts of you should do this and you should do that. And I think in the beginning it works because you're just trying to get people through the door. But then everyone starts to sound the same. And with now everyone being super hyper aware and having these digital spidey senses, it's just not going to cut it anymore. And I had a moment where I had the biggest team I've ever had. I had 7 contractors. I had a CMO who was really brilliant. And she actually came super highly recommended from another online expert who did really, really well. And she couldn't grow my audience. For 5 months, our Instagram following stayed flat. We weren't really selling our emails. And that's also around the time that I got married. And so I didn't have the bandwidth to really do much. And I think because I was traveling so much and had so much family time, and because the CMO and I parted ways, everything kind of just like fell apart and I had to start from scratch. And creating the spaciousness in my business where I let go of my revenue goals, launch goals. I do talk about my journey with burnout and money scarcity, realizing that like, you know what? This year is going to look different. And I'm not going to have these crazy quarterly projection and goals. And I'm just going to let go and enjoy my fucking wedding instead of worrying about this launch, that launch. Whew, it created a different frequency in me. I found myself getting back on the computer late at night, writing emails. This was before AI, by the way. I found myself being so connected to my mother after I did a lot of psychedelic plant medicine healing, where I took her to her first all expenses paid trip, and just having spaciousness and pause made me way more creative. Before, content was such a factory, and it still is to some extent. Like, content is what we do. We have to constantly create content. But for me, it was just like such a drag, such a burden. And by creating that spaciousness, letting go of my CMO, and realizing that the previous urgency and scarcity just wasn't selling, I just started from scratch. What is the rubric now? What is the blueprint now? When all the things that you've been told by other online coaches just aren't working anymore. It's not about timers. It's not about 3 spots left, 2 spots left. It's about how can you create that connection? So I started talking about my truth, things that were true to me, about how I was a terrible manager, about how I was a very cheap person, about how I nickel and dime and micromanaged my team and I lost a lot of good people, about how all of these things, about my generational trauma and living in scarcity. My mother grew up without electricity and food, like water. She was on food rations in communist China. My uncles went to prison and labor camps. That proximity to war and famine, how that's affected me and my self-worth, and how I had to rewrite that entire narrative of thinking that nothing was ever enough to trusting that in the here and now, there's always enough. And that is deep, soulful work that I will continue to do for the rest of my life. But along that journey of my truth, as it was revealing itself, I started to share that. And we started to get people coming out of the word work saying, this resonates with me so much. I also have a difficult relationship with my mother. I had people DMing me from years ago who came out of nowhere and was like, this really touched me. I want to know how we can work together. So my truth wasn't like, oh, I want to turn this into a sales funnel. It was like, here's what I'm feeling. It probably doesn't have anything to do with PR, but this is what's authentic to me. I was calling out the stuff that I was tired of seeing. It was calling out BS, calling out all the shoulds and how we trap ourselves into what other people think we should do. And in embracing that truth, I just felt like, wow, I had a steam valve. I finally let go and I was able to speak from an unconstrained place. And people came. So that was the first thing, is from template to truth, and really coming full circle with the moment when the Oaxaca birth chart reader said, Gloria, remember who the fuck you are. And here I am, taking rejection as a sign that I have finally arrived in my messaging. It's the pinnacle of messaging, isn't it? When you can really attract the right people and repel the wrong people. And that is a damn good thing. The second thing I think that we all need to do, but especially what I have done in my messaging to make my business more profitable than ever, but also attracting just really good humans and not having people who maybe want refunds or are hard to deal with. The second thing is going from being very approval seeking to values driven. So I am a people pleaser. I didn't grow up with a traditional mom and dad. My friends were my lifeline. And so I always was the one with a billion friends, but always doing whatever they wanted. So I was a chameleon. I could adapt to different situations. I probably moved 13 times as a kid. I never really had my own childhood home. And so I was very good at seeking people's approval, asking for permission, getting people to come into the conversation, to tell me what they thought, getting feedback like it was a tick, where I literally would iterate and not really do something until I got feedback from like 20 people. That was ingrained in me. And it also was in my content. I was always like looking for what other people were doing. I watered down my opinion so that it was nice and palatable to everyone. And I thought, oh, well, these are the online coaches who are doing really well. They have this persona. They're the nice girl next door. And it just wasn't working for me. I feel like there's so much depth and complexity to all the layers of what we're doing that we are rejecting our humanity and the wholeness of ourselves if we do that. And with the work that I have done through psychedelic plant medicine, actually witnessing my mom's grief of losing the love of her life, realizing that there are emotions like grief that we don't want to talk about. That's not sexy. That's not marketable. But talking about it will really make people realize grief is here to teach us. It's through exploring the depth and contours of my mother's grief that I was able to heal my relationship with her and have compassion. That is what I mean by going from the content that is approval seeking, things that you're doing a little dance, you're doing a little tips and you're giving guidance, to just being values driven for what I value. I value so many more things than just business and success. I think grief is our greatest teacher. I think we need to sometimes go through the hard times and not have a solution. My values are very clear now. I talk about race a lot. I talk about shopping small a lot. I talk about anti-Amazon a lot. Now, I still do shop at Amazon, but not to the point that I did. I'm looking at labels. I'm looking at who this person is from. I am inviting people to my podcast from all different walks of life, people who have demonstrated that they care about small businesses. I like to feature diverse founders. I like to go to events where there are diverse founders. And so that is very carefully curated now, where I'm very intentional about not just making besties with the people who are the most popular or maybe who can benefit my business the most because they have the most following, but who are the people who are in my vibe tribe, who understand this journey that I'm on. Values, 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 values of inclusion, of equity, of diversity, of being proximate and getting curious to different lived experiences, of not projecting this toxic, internalized, white supremacist end stage capitalism of what success should look like with jets and money and glitz and glam. But it's really about how do we elevate other people, and not this whole toxic positivity of, oh, if I can do it, you can too, which, by the way, I think is very egregious, is making space for the fact that not everyone can invest in an online coach. Not everyone can be broke and invest in a $20,000 mastermind. People have generational shit that they're dealing with. They have parents who don't speak English that they have to take care of. So that's what I mean by really going from approval seeking, watered down content to my values, calling out the BS in bro marketing, calling out the fact that a lot of these bro marketers think that money is the only thing that I'm after. And I've evolved to embrace a richness and fullness of life where there's so much outside of just money that makes me feel so good inside. For example, we had a person who has not been in our program in 4 years, but I saw a Forbes PR opportunity and I remember her name and exactly what she made. She made leather handmade bags. And I sent that Forbes opportunity to her. and she got featured. And I started crying when she told me. I was literally in the busy intersection in downtown Brooklyn going to my physical therapist. And at a stoplight, when I saw that message, I recorded back to her because nothing makes me happier than seeing people win. She hasn't been in my program for 4 years. So much life has happened, moves, relationships, but that made me so happy. So that's what I mean by values is I am choosing to define things differently by the way that I seek is important. And it's going to not vibe with a lot of people. I had a lot of people unsubscribe, tell me that I should stay in my lane, to not talk about politics, calling me fake, calling me whack, all those things. But it's okay because then I have 10 times more people leaning all the way in and I want to attract my hell yes people. And that starts with speaking about what you're for and what you're against. And I think we cannot live in this neutrality anymore, not only for our own being, but also in the world of business. Same and neutrality is just not cutting anymore. People want to know who you stand for, what you stand for. And we have to take a stance. I'm sorry, we cannot be silent anymore, especially with everything that's happening politically, socioeconomically. We just can't. And that's how I really feel. So yes, my audience got a little bit smaller, but those people leaned all the way in. And after I got those 150 people unfollowing me, I started to skyrocket my follower count. And I was looking at the analytics on Instagram. I was like, wow, like we've never grown this quickly. But I had a good 3 weeks where people were just dropping off. And then boom, there was a rush because now people out of the woodworks find me who are so aligned and who resonate with my life story, who I would have never reached in a million years if I still have done the approval seeking templated same Instagram approved things. So that's really what I mean is I really went from approval seeking to being so bold and unapologetic about who I am. It's undeniable what I stand for and what I stand against. The third one, which I touched upon earlier, is going from authority to resonance. So authority alone is not getting you anywhere. I don't care about your accolades. I don't care about how many followers you have. Honestly, I want to know, is there a psychological safety? Is there a shared human experience? Is there resonance with your lived experience in mind? And it doesn't mean that you have to be a daughter of a widowed immigrant who grew up with Black people. It could be that we share the same values, the same grief journey, the same traumas and triggers, and we're aware of it. And we're very much still evolving and in the process of becoming. And so that's why my New York messaging event, the sacred messaging event, it's not about attracting your clients. It's about remembering who the fuck you are and becoming more of that, because that's what marketing needs to be for us to be more of who we are so that we can take off all of the layers and really attract that with strong frequency who we are here to attract. And I think it's the same in relationships and dating as well. Like Rumi says, you are what you seek. And so how can we be more clear about who we are so that we are only in alignment and build a world around us that's a mirror of exactly who we are. And that starts with us, honestly, peeling back the layers. I've been open to share my struggles, not just the highlight reels about, how do you 10x this or 2x or 3x this, but the realities of business and the realities of, okay, yeah, I did my 6-figure launch and I was absolutely miserable. The fact that online business sometimes isn't what it's all chalked up to be, but I also express immense gratitude, the fact that I get to have freedom and I get to fly my mom business class. So all of those things can exist at the same time. And I think where the oppression comes from in the oppressive society, that whether it's sexism, whether it's ableism, whether it's racism, is that people are being split into, living in a duality where you have to pick one or the other. And I think understanding the nuance of it all and the spectrum nature of who we are, that we can understand many different things to be true at the same time, that is what creates beauty, abundance, and to embrace the wholeness of someone. The first step into dehumanizing someone is by labeling them and categorizing them and objectifying them. And so the more that we can be fully multifaceted, we reclaim our humanity. And that's really the messaging work that I'm doing, that I am helping other people to do, which is, yes, you can be all these things. No, you don't have to figure it out, but it is your job to be unapologetic and clear about where you are on your journey. And not just sharing the destination, because we will never arrive at our destination. We will always be impacted by what happens. We are getting new information, downloads. We are never the same. We are evolving. So that's what I mean by how do you create that psychological resonance with someone so that they feel safe knowing that their lived experience is somehow connected to yours. Maybe not in the connection in the same that we grew up in California, but like that these emotions, that these underlying things, that there is a resonance, there is an understanding, there is a safe space for that. And so that's really the journey that I've been on to redefine not only myself, but how I do PR. I have always said I've really radically changed how I do PR. It's not just about logos. It's not about, get featured here and it looks great and it's credible. No, it's about doing the work so that people who have been traditionally marginalized and don't feel safe advocating for themselves feel safe to finally make some fucking noise about themselves. I think especially as women and women of color, we have spent our lives advocating for other people because we've seen our mom do that and her mom. And so how do we reclaim that and feel safe to finally advocate for ourselves, knowing that there is judgment, knowing that maybe some tables were not meant for us, but we're going to do it anyway. And that starts with community. And this business has evolved so much more than just a business. It's a community. It's us sharing resources. It's us connecting with each other, elevating each other, celebrating the highs and lows. And me, when I host events, like I am only featuring products from our small business makers. I am not getting big outside sponsors. I do not want dilution of energy. And so that's what I mean by living with my values. And so those three key pivots has made my business 75% more profitable while having less team. Because now what I've done is I've used AI tools to train my AI to really understand my tone of voice. So of course I'm still the originator, but I'm not depending on a social media person to write my caption. I'm not depending on a CMO to tell me, here's what you should talk about. It is flowing from me. And we have to feel safe to do that first. We have to create spaciousness from our to-do list to mentally tap into that curiosity and artistry. And it's not easy work, but if it's one thing that you take away from this is that rejection and unsubscribes are a good thing. It's a sign that you're getting somewhere. It's a sign that you're being more courageous. And by doing so, you are inviting people to do the same. Thank you so much for listening. I so appreciate you being here week after week. We do not have the biggest platform. We don't have the biggest podcast. I am not doing tons of advertising. I'm actually doing no advertising. But the fact that you still show up week after week, if you tell a friend about it, it means the world. I really hope that more people who resonate with this message can hear it, and the people who don't can unsubscribe. And both are really great things. Thank you so much, my friends. And I will see you next week. And hopefully I will see you inside of my program or at one of our in-person events, experiences, so that we can go deep and I can hold space for you. Thank you.